So in the Discord, we were talking about setting deadlines and having them as a major focal point towards your goals. I personally believe that if you have a goal and it doesn't have a deadline, then it's not really a real goal. It's more of a want or a desire. It's kind of ambiguous. It's up there. It's in the ether. It can get done when it gets done. But in my opinion, if you don't have a goal, where are you going to go with it? How do you know when you're done? How do you know when to do it? How do you know when, you lose a major aspect of the specificity that every goal requires, and you're putting the cart before the horse. Why bother studying for a certification if you don't have a set desire to have a deadline? And by set desire, I mean, if you're really honest with yourself, if you don't set a deadline, if you don't have there are what I call a soft deadline and a hard deadline. Pause, no diddy. A soft deadline is something like a bit more ambiguous. You have a general idea of when you want to get it done. Typically, it's defined by a month or a season. In your mind is like, I'm going to get this certification by winter of 2024 or whatever. I plan on getting my Network Plus and my Security Plus by that time. For me, I have a soft deadline of Network Plus being, I believe, more than likely late October of 2024, and my Security Plus being late November, if not early December of 2024, because I want to have my holiday seasons free. The reason why they're soft deadlines is because I've never actually set a date aside or a week aside or a specific point on a calendar to do so. A hard deadline would be exactly that. A hard deadline is, I'm going to take this exam on this date, and that's when I'm going to go pass it, and if I fail, this is when I'm going to go retake it. And a big definition of a hard deadline is not only having it on a calendar, because if it's on a calendar, let's be honest, you're going to push it aside. There's the possibility of you pushing it aside. There's a possibility of you delaying it for no reason, or for whatever reason that you might find justifiable. You're going to excuse it by saying you're not ready. Maybe you're not ready. Who knows? The legitimacy towards your actual issue, whether the excuse that you're giving yourself is legitimate or not, is dependent on a case-by-case basis, of course. But in general, most of the time when we push our deadlines, for one, it's because it's not painful to do so. I mean, it is to a degree. We feel a degree of shame when we push a deadline, but it's also not painful in the monetary sense. For example, if you push a deadline and they charge you a fee to reschedule the test, you're going to think twice about it and maybe stick to it and just tough it out, and maybe you might surprise yourself and pass. Versus something that's just waived easily. Oh, you can delay this as many times as you want. You're not going to have to pay a fee. You're not going to have to really feel the sting of the decision to delay. Even if it's something like a hard deadline. If you have a hard deadline, like you call CompTIA up and you say, hey, I want to go to this test center and I want to do it November the 25th, right? Well, that's your hard deadline. You're going to work towards every single day that you're going to study according to your schedule is working towards that November 25th. There's no ambiguity. There's no nonsense. There's a definite aspect or point in your head that I'm not going to add that guy on LinkedIn. What the fuck? There's a specific point in your head that says, this is when this is due and this is what I'm pushing towards, and it's coming to fruition. Yeah, you might have deadline fear, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's better than having what I would call deadline rot, where you're not studying because you don't have a deadline and you keep lying to yourself and saying that, dude, I'll do it when I'm ready. Look at the video that I have about the 5 people who passed the FAA exam in my class, I being one of the 5. I'm not saying that to flex. I'm saying that as a major point in question. There are people who have spent so much money paying rent in Harrisonburg. There's people paying so much money paying tuition fees to go and become an aircraft mechanic, but they didn't do it. Why? Why didn't they do it? Well, some of them I was actually in close contact with, and what they would do is they would delay it. They would delay it more and more. They didn't have a deadline. They didn't call the because you have to do an oral and practical exam with a certified tester, right? They never call that guy. They never set up a date with him. No, none at all, right? Because they wanted to keep studying until they felt ready, and then a month would go by, and they didn't study as much as they should have, and then 2 months would go by, and all of a sudden the rot really sets in. They don't feel as sharp, they don't remember the material as much, and then eventually they just don't do it. There are people out there who I've actually caught up with them, years after mechanic school, and they've had very fruitful lives and separate careers, right? More power to them. That's fantastic, right? They're honest with me. They're saying, something, I really wish I went and took that exam. That way I can at least get that license because it doesn't expire. And there's people who I've caught up with that should have taken that exam, that didn't take that exam, and their biggest regret was not taking that exam because they let it linger for too long. They let it rot. They let the deadline rot really kick in. They didn't set a deadline. They didn't work towards it. They didn't say, okay, on the 25th, I'm going to go down to this place and that place and take my exam, take this exam, take that exam, and boom, I got my license. No, they didn't do that. Only 5 people did that. And all 5 of those people passed. And it's not because they're different intrinsically. They're not different people. They're not like intrinsically better, right? They're not, what am I trying to say? They're not like, they're not genetically predisposed to success or whatever other excuse that somebody might give as to why they're not doing well. All they've done is something completely different. They didn't let that deadline rot sink in. I'll show you an example of deadline rot, and it's because I'm dealing with it every day. Look at this. So this is my calendar from January 2024. I'm pretty sure everything that I have on this section, I had to go all the way back to January because I had some stuff that I didn't want to delete and I didn't really bother. I didn't want to show on YouTube or whatever. But look at this, right? So on January 2024, I had an expected call with my mentors and people who are going to set up my, all my accounts and stuff like that with WGU and enroll with that school. Fantastic, great. On the 10th of Wednesday, I said, hey, I got to find a webcam, get ready for school on the first day. Cool. But then we have a small example of deadline rot, and this is orientation. I was assigned orientation. I was given a week to do it, and I would just keep delaying it and delaying it and delaying it. And by the way, when I wrote this was the final week I could do it. I was assigned to it actually on the 1st, right? I remember this distinctly because I actually did it like last second. Like I think it was due the 29th, and if I didn't get it done by the 29th, I wouldn't enroll in the course, and I was busy at the 27th and the 28th, right? So on 8:30 a.m. on Friday, I was like, bro, I got to do this that night. Like I got to do it that day on Friday. Get it done or don't do it. That small level of deadline rot, I mean, just builds up in the head. The anxiety really stacks up. Oh man, when am I gonna do this? I haven't done this yet. What am I doing? That kind of shit. But then there's another huge example of deadline rot, and that's these 2 reoccurring goals right here. I've had these goals on my Google Calendar for years, honestly. I'll be honest, at least 2 years I've had this idea of creating a network area storage for my family photos and setting up a dash cam for my car. I have the materials, I have the thing. What I haven't done yet is set aside the time, specifically make a hard deadline to go and do it. So what happened? Every single Wednesday I get a notification, hey, you got to do this, hey, you got to do this, hey, you got to do this. It becomes background noise. It just the deadline rot really kicks in. And you might say, oh, you hypocrite, why are you telling me about deadline rot when you haven't even set up and finished all the goals that you have done? Well, you know what I'm trying to tell you is that you should learn from my example. I'm saying that it can occur in multiple different aspects of life, whether it's schooling, whether it's certification practice, whether it's studying for a skill, or whether it's just small fun goals like setting up a dash cam, which is actually pretty fucking important, or having a network area storage to hone in your skills in IT or whatever. That'd be a really fun project to do. Now there's another form of deadline rot, and I think a lot of people do that. And throughout the years, I've gone through that shit. And that sort of deadline rot is the first time you get into a habit, right? For example, back in January, I said, hey, at 5:30 p.m. after work, go work out. I'm going to tell you right now, between January and now, which is like September 3rd, I haven't been as consistent as I should have been in the gym. Nah, no siree. To the point where health scares were in the picture, and it's very stereotypical for someone in IT, of course. But what I'm trying to say is it's very real. The more you put off a deadline that you should do, the more guilty, the self-loathing sets in. The rot is real, bro. The rot can really fuck with your mental and cloud your judgment. and not get you to where you want to be. From a more esoteric perspective in the Discord, which by the way, invite link in the description, um, from a more esoteric perspective, I said, look, for the entirety of your life, whether it's middle school, high school, college, if you did it, you've set a deadline for yourself, right? You've had a schedule, you've paced it, you've gone through it, and that's how you got things done. But all of a sudden, when you go to college, it's free reign. There's nobody there to like really hold your hand, or there's nobody there to remind you that, hey, by the way, you have this deadline coming up. So when you're kind of free reign, with great power comes great responsibility. What are you going to do? Well, you have to set your own deadlines. But people, they kind of fall into this kind of this what do you want to call it? This ditch, this mental ditch, where they start approaching goals backwards, where instead of having a set deadline off a rip, or even thinking about a deadline, they start studying for it. They consider confidence to be the biggest aspect that they need to build up before they go and pursue the challenge or go take the cert. And it kind of turns into a thing where, like, let me put it this way, right? When confidence becomes your number one litmus test for whether or not you should go do something or work towards something, it has a sort of manifestation when you take it, for example, with talking to women, right? Like if you're out with your boys, and I've seen this on multiple occasions, if you're out with your boys and you see a girl that you like and you start talking about her with the guys, like, wow, this girl's really attractive, I wish I could go talk to her, this kind of stuff. Sometimes the guys are gonna be like, yo, dude, you gotta go, right? But they're not just saying you gotta go, like, hey, you should do this. It's kind of a double entendre. You have to do it now. And the reason why you have to do it now is because if you don't do it right fucking now, you're gonna talk yourself out of it. You're gonna sort of not the deadline rot, the unconfidence, the anxiety really takes a foothold. It's like, oh shit, man, I would talk to her, but she's gotta I don't, like, fuck it. I mean, maybe she doesn't like me. Is my hair looking good? All the shit that's honestly extremely irrelevant to the situation, that isn't important. I mean, if you don't go do that right now, the second that you think that person is attractive, you're going to talk yourself out of it. You're going to find 101 reasons not to. And I mean, it's probably why you have an epidemic of people who are saying, like, wow, I go to these public areas and, I'm not being approached like I should be, or I'm not being approached how I want to be. What's going on with guys these days? They're not approaching girls that they think they're attractive. It's becoming a problem. It's becoming a problem, and it's because we're all stuck in our own heads. All right, the huge solution, bro. I'm so serious. Get it out of your head. Get it out of your head. Take that shit, put it to paper, and treat it like fucking gospel. The second you have a deadline, a hard deadline, you make a hard deadline, put it on your calendar, put it on your Google Calendar. Make a schedule, a study schedule that works with your lifestyle, with your schedule. Not everybody works the same 40 hours, or 60 hours or 80 hours. I understand that. But, if it's possible, make it work for your schedule. Do what you need to have to do. And forget about the confidence aspect. I'm serious. There's so many times where I've gone to take a test where I did not feel 100% confident and I still passed. There's times that I failed. But well, not failed, but like I didn't get the score that I really wanted to. But the point is this: when the fuck will you ever be 100% confident about anything, about any decision that you do, about anything really? Like I don't think I've ever been 100% confident about any single action that I've taken. Yeah, a majority of the time. I don't think I'm that confident unless you're playing video games or some shit, which is probably why a lot of people feel comfortable in video games. It's like, oh yeah, this is an expected thing that occurs, like with Factorio. Maybe there's some hidden psychology to that. It's like, this is my world that I know the outcomes of. There's no chance, there's no RNG, there's nothing that I need to feel unconfident in. And even if there is RNG, the consequences aren't that damaging to the psyche. Like if you talk to a girl, what is she gonna do? Say no? That's such a hit to the ego, and that doesn't exist when you're talking to I don't fucking know, your dating sims or some shit. I have no idea. Point is this, right? Respect your goals enough to have a deadline. Because if you don't, the deadline rot is going to kick in. You're going to build up that anxiety. If you don't, how are you going to, if you don't have a deadline, how the hell are you going to have a study schedule? Studying for what? For when? When are you going to do it? When are you going to finally take that test? Ah, dude. And then eventually you're gonna fall off that sort of like that rhythm, that pattern that you have, and all of a sudden the material is gonna get duller and duller. You're not gonna remember it as much, and by the time someone says, "Hey, did you take that test?" You're gonna be like, "Ah, dude, you're gonna have to cope." Ah, dude, I'm still studying. There's this guy I know at the gym. I shit you not, right? A side story. He's a cool guy. Don't get me wrong. He's a great person. Nothing to do with this person as an individual, but I remember going to the gym in January, right? Meeting him, getting to talk to him. He had this big CompTIA textbook, and he was reading it while he was working at the counter, right? And I was like, and we started talking about tech. He's like, dude, that's really sick, whatever. And he's telling me in January, he's telling me that he has spent the last 4 months studying for this test. And you might think, shit, this must be like a crazy test. He must be talking about like Network Plus or CYSA or Linux Plus. No, motherfucker. He's not even studying for A+. He's not. You know what he's studying for? Fundamentals. IT fundamentals. Oh my god. Holy shit. I mean, I'm not flexing. I'm an idiot. Remember, I went to a completely different career field, right? But back in high school, there was people taking a class, a vocational class there, right? And the end of that class, you got a voucher to take the fundamentals test for free. There was high schoolers passing this shit. The fundamentals test for CompTIA is not that hard. I promise you. Even a month would be overkill to really study it. If you're coming from brand new IT, I understand, right? Maybe it gives you 2 or 3 months. That's what I usually tell people who want to go for the A+. Give yourself, a month or two to study for each aspect of it. Sure, why not, right? If you're absolutely brand new, you've never fucking touched a computer in your life, right? Or build computers or anything like that. Fine, I get it. But in January, this guy's telling me that he's taken 4 months to do it, and oh my god. And then I go to the gym back in fucking like August, July, and I ask him like, "Yo, dude, it's been a while. Have you taken that test yet?" He's like, "Man, life was crazy, man." I'm like, "Holy moly, this is like a year and a half you haven't taken this exam." You know what I mean? And I try to tell him as nice as I can. I'm like, "Listen, dude, you're overthinking this. Fundamentals, or fundies as I called it, the fundies exam is not that hard. I promise you. You're overthinking it. You're getting overprepared. And the biggest problem this guy's having is one, a lack of confidence. Because then I asked him, like, have you done these practice exams? He might be like, you might be saying like, maybe he has, he's failing practice exams back to back. He's not hitting high marks or anything like that. Like there's an actual quantifiable reason as to why he's not feeling confident enough to take this exam. He's telling me in August, he's like, "Dude, yeah, I'm pulling like 80s, 90s in the practice exams." And I'm like, well, then what the fuck are you waiting for? And he's like, "I'm waiting for that confidence. I'm just trying to build that up." And I told him like, dude, don't horseshit me. You know what I mean? Like you're never gonna be 100% confident for this exam. Like, do it and get it over with. You know what I mean? Like it's not that deep until you make it that deep. And the biggest problem that this guy has, I'm telling you, core aspect of the biggest, like, I think, like, if we're looking at the root of his problem, is the fact that he never set a deadline. I'm serious. He never set a deadline. All he did was work towards that goal. That's all they'll tell you, these influencers and shit, right? Have a goal, work towards it, whatever. Okay, motherfucker, that's cool and all, but if you don't have a deadline, a reasonable and respectable deadline, then when the fuck are you ever gonna get it done? I don't understand. If you can't stick to deadlines, that's a whole thing, but it's a skill that you can practice. It's possible. I'm telling you, it's very possible. Set a deadline, a hard deadline, when you can't get past, when you can't just fucking move by the flick of a wrist, and then have a schedule. And I'm telling you, dude, I'm not telling you to like dude, study for 6 hours a day. You know what I mean? Like, just, bruh, come on, bruh. I know you have an hour for that day. Please don't bullshit me. Please don't fuck with me. Please don't fuck with me. If you're working for 40 hours a week, and you're not in a relationship, and you don't have kids, and you don't have a second job, and you don't even go to the gym, first off, you should. But if you don't even do that, and you don't have other lifestyle stuff, like you have to take care of your parents or some shit, then please tell me why you don't have that spare hour. Pull up Steam right now. Show me how many hours you spent on League of Legends. Show me, just don't pitch me an idea when you can't even accept it in your own heart. Because then you're just selling bullshit. And that's not fair. That's not fair to you, and that's not fair to me. But not for real. You guys have this shit in the bag. Lock in. You can do it. Anyone can. Keep it up.